Okay, hi everyone. So this is going to be quick and fun. Well, first of all, I would like to make a remark that Futurism X is dead. It's going to be called H plus X, but that's details, and then we'll explain it later. Okay, so in the past few months, I have been doing a kind of a crash course on the AI topic as it relates to consciousness and intellect. And yesterday, particularly, I was just for 24 hours watching different TED Talks, videos, lectures, books, and articles. And I wanted to throw open my presentation with one small little snippet that I've came across. So it goes like this. If you study one neuron, you're in neuroscience. If you study two neurons, you're in psychology. Now, that has nothing to do with my presentation at all, but I really thought it's kind of a fun thing to mention. Sounds cool. So, okay. This is the slide. If anybody has been here on the presentation 2 conferences ago, which was dedicated to existential risks of emerging technologies, this was the slide that I finished my presentation with, and I didn't have time to elaborate on it. So when I got a chance to speak here on this presentation for a little bit, I thought, well, I'll take it as a chance to finally explain what happened on that slide, because last time I didn't have any time to do so. Don't pay any attention to it yet. I'll explain everything at the end. I can't turn it down right now. So yeah, it's going to be on, but this is the only slide that I have for the full presentation. And my presentation is called AI Spectrum. So what do I mean by that? Pretty much everything. The thing is that once I started reading all this material, because my question was, what do people in this field really think about our intelligence, a relation between intelligence and consciousness? And it's kind of funny because I think it's the first time today that anybody's using word consciousness. Which is really, I was waiting, and nobody used the word. And it's really interesting because everybody in the scientific community, in the community of engineers, in the community of artificial intelligence, they all are kind of trying to be very evasive and avoid using the word consciousness. However, when we talk about artificial intelligence, I think there is some terminology that needs to be cleared. What exactly is it that we're talking about? Because we're talking about a number of different things. And I have been, in the past year or so, ever since I got involved with all these conferences, I acquired a lot of really interesting and smart friends. And I am a very curious person who is not afraid of asking different questions that might confuse people. And I kept on asking people questions about consciousness, about artificial intelligence. Do you believe in soul? Do you believe in God? All these kind of things. And it's kind of interesting to see how the distribution falls in this community. And the distribution is approximately the following. 99.99% are materialists. But then if you go into the real world, out there, you know, where the actual mess of life and politics is happening, distribution is exactly opposite. Most of the people believe in things that exist beyond matter. And it is a very interesting topic because when we talk about creating artificial intelligence, are we talking about just intelligence, or are we talking about self-awareness, creating machines that are not just intelligent, but have what we refer to as consciousness? And then if we do talk about that, what exactly do we mean by this? So there is what I started noticing is that there is a whole spectrum that has certain benchmarks, and you can walk along the spectrum and you can see where everybody's falling along the lines. So I kind of did this crash course on philosophy of consciousness, and I picked up this book by John Searle, who is a professor here at Berkeley, and he's really, really good at summarizing everybody in the field. So this book I really recommend, because basically in each chapter he summarizes major works of people who are dealing with the consciousness as relates to artificial intelligence. And I'm going to read you one description of a particular so to speak, spectrum. So basically, he summarizes here the way Penrose describes different various aspects of how we can perceive the possibility of AI being conscious and self-aware, and the possibility of creating artificial intelligence. So there are 4 groups in that spectrum. So A, there's a strong AI, and that's a term that people hear, but again, many people have misunderstandings, I think, a little bit about what it means, like strong AI, general AI, you know, narrow AI. And Peter has been explaining to us the difference between what is narrow AI and general AI. But here we're going to talk about different spectrums. So strong AI, it's a consciousness and other mental phenomena consist entirely in computational processes. What does it mean? It means that that consciousness can be simulated fully in a black box. So that we can take some geniuses of the world, make them work on that, they will solve it eventually, and it will be conscious, right? But it will be in the box, it will be in the code. So we can fully simulate consciousness in the code. That's the extreme range of this. Now, Searle admits that he rejects strong AI. Most of the people actually reject the idea and notion of the strong AI, that we can fully simulate consciousness in the machine. The second one is weak AI, so-called weak AI. The idea is that the brain processes cause consciousness, and these processes can be simulated on a computer, but the computational simulation by itself does not guarantee consciousness. So what does it mean? It means that consciousness does depend on simulation of the way the brain works. So there's something intrinsically unique about the way our neurons are firing in the brain, and that gives rise to consciousness. Yet we can somehow create computational models that would simulate those behaviors and therefore give rise to an artificial consciousness. Now, this is a very, not everybody falls into this group, but a lot of people actually fall into this group, that we can simulate it, yet we need to understand how the brain works, and it's going to take simulation of the full brain. The next group is the following. Brain processes cause consciousness, but these processes cannot even be properly simulated computationally. So the idea here is that, yes, consciousness is in the brain, and we cannot compute it on the machine. But yet still this third group is still laying on that spectrum of, so there are 2 groups. There is a dualistic vision of the world, where basically I was just mentioning people who believe that there is matter and then there's something beyond matter. That's a dualistic reality. And then there's a monism, where the idea is that well, everything is mind and energy, and somehow it's all connected. We don't know yet how, but the hard problem of mind and body phenomena is solvable, meaning that there is no dualistic reality. There is no such thing as mind and body. There are just somehow the emergence of some phenomena that are essentially can be described as one phenomena. So in this third group that I just described, the idea is that it's still monism, right? So it's still the idea that consciousness is not a mystery, but we cannot compute it on the simulate it on the computer. Somehow it is inherently based in the properties and its emerging phenomena of the brain. Now the fourth group, that's where all the spiritual people fall. So consciousness cannot be explained scientifically by any means, computational or otherwise. Now here, the idea is that, consciousness is a mystery and we cannot compute it. Now, I want to make a small experiment. So just out of curiosity, okay? So let's do it again. People, if you think you fall into this group, raise your hand. Okay, so A, strong AI. Consciousness can be computed on the machine. Great. B, weak AI. We will require simulation of the brain to be able to create consciousness, but we can't do it on the machine. Okay. C, brain processes cause consciousness, but these processes cannot even be properly computed on the machine. Okay. And D, consciousness cannot be explained scientifically and cannot be computed on the machine. It's a mystery. Great. All right, so you've seen that there is a very nice, actually, statistical distribution here, with the majority falling into the group where we think it can be a computer code. That's great. But if you go out there on the streets, because we're here have a biased sample, but if you go out on the streets, it will be kind of actually more 50-50. And that is exactly what I want to talk about, although I don't have any time anymore. But the point is that there is this dichotomy of views, right? And people on one spectrum, they will not accept the opinion of the others. And as much as we can talk and philosophize, like I read all this book and he summarizes greatest minds of the world, and nobody can agree on what is consciousness. Nobody can fully agree what do we mean by that. The problem that I personally see and the danger that I see with the artificial intelligence is that if we cannot agree on whether the machine that is going to talk and walk and speak to us and simulate our intelligence so perfectly that it's even higher than ours, if we cannot agree on the simple notion whether it is consciousness or not, I can see the potentiality of such groups that are fundamental religious fractions, ISIS again, you know, all these groups, because we have a lot of this very extreme fundamental religious notions still in the world, that will just rise in rage, saying, well, what does that mean? Are we demiurgs? Are we creating souls? If somebody will proclaim that we have created intelligence, that is consciousness. So, number one, it is extremely important to define terms and understand that it is dangerous to link the two together, intelligence and consciousness. If we are talking about artificial intelligence, we need to be separately talking about artificial consciousness, or until we prove that intelligence equals consciousness, which a lot of people in this community, they equate those things. I personally would disagree with that, and I think that there is a danger in equating those just like that. So the spectrum, basically, oh, it's gone. Let's see. Now that I've introduced you to the general idea that I want to talk about, it's kind of funny because I wanted to talk about this slide, but then I didn't, because there are a few terms here that nobody has ever used, and I use them when I talk to people about it, to friends, and just because I see that there are gaps in the way we determine the stages of a potential evolution and involution of consciousness. And I was kind of shy to introduce it, but a few of my friends, they're like, go, do it. So, okay, here we have pure human on one side, right? And on another side, we have pure code. So if the first scenario is possible, right, when we can have consciousness on a pure machine, pure code intelligence, then this is this, right? On black box AI, just call it here black box AI. Then on the other hand, we have pure human. So what I see happening is the evolution and involution of the intelligence, simultaneously occurring as we are evolving artificial intelligence. So what I mean by this is that artificial intelligence, I think, is not going to just rise as a black box thing. It is going to simultaneously start penetrating the very existence and with us. It will start merging with us. And during this process of merging with us, it will be emerging. And, well, I'm going to get to final thesis at the end. So you can see, let's go step by step. So starting from pure code. Once we add locational independence, meaning, has anybody seen this movie where Kurzweil presents this, what's his term for his AI, not Samantha, but Samantha now just blocks my mind. Ramona, right, Ramona. So he has this Ramona. So Ramona has this friend of hers that exists only in the digital realm, and she's an artificial intelligence too, but she flies around like a small sprite. You know, so the idea is that when AI is in the box, like for example, there was a notion here that, you know, if AI is dangerous, we can shut it down, but we can shut it down only if it's in the box. If it's out of the box, if the genie is out of the box, it's locationally independent, meaning it can fly around and roam around the internet and do whatever it wants, right? So now that's already a different category. And there's a proposition of calling these kind of AI entities sprites, meaning that they exist in the digital realm and they are locationally independent. So that's the next stage of evolving into our world from the black box. The next one, so we have AI, then the next one is locational independence. It can fly around and be independent of its location. The next one is we're adding qualia. So we're adding the ability of that AI to feel, to see, to do things with the world and to operate, to have some operational abilities. For example, Samantha in the movie, in a sense, she's a gnome. Term is gnome, basically. The idea is that it can operate something in the world. It has access to the world. It can monitor your thermostat. It can turn on your car. It can turn on your coffee machine or something of that sort. So once we have that added, it has access to the physical objects, then it's a different category. And there are no terms for these different categories of artificial intelligence assistants that can possibly emerge in the world. And the reason I'm doing that, I'm a UX designer, so I always think about how people perceive, what kind of terminology people use, how people operate with technology. And I can see that we are going to have, basically the whole market is going to boom very soon with all these personal assistants, right, that claim to be AIs. I think it will still take a long time until we have a real AI, but there will be a lot of replicas that will be marketed in different ways. And again, those terminologies for different kinds of those entities are not very clear yet. And I'm proposing these two terms, sprites for those that are digital but locationally independent, and gnomes for those that can operate physical objects and technology. So the next one, we add a body. So the next thing, it's locationally independent, it's intelligent, it can feel, sense, and do certain operations in the world. And the next thing, it receives a body. Now, once it has received a body, basically it's a robot. It's a classical notion of intelligent robot, right? So you can see how this actually is a spectrum. You're adding things step by step, and now we're essentially incarnating intelligence into the physical world. So now it's a robot. I'm gonna come back there. So now let's go to that spectrum. Pure humans, right? That's pretty much most of us. I picked up that term Terrans Organics, that's from Hugo de Garis. He calls them Terrans from the word terra, but it's also a political group that he refers to, which is people who will be against building AI, who will be kind of like, organic hippies. They're like, yeah, I don't want to put chips into my brain. Don't touch me. This is going to kill us. This is bad for the world. This is bad for our biology. We're going to get destroyed. So basically, the idea is that it will be a political group and a physically organic humans. Maybe in the future we will even use term organic humans, as we did with vegetables and everything. Once we create non-organic, now we're going to have organic humans. Then the next one is the political fraction again. So now that we're coming towards here, we have political shift, so cosmological shift. The idea is that Hugo de Garis, and that's Hugo de Garis there, he calls them cosmists. It's a political ideological shift where basically almost everybody here are cosmists. We believe that humans have potentiality to break through and dissolve all those obstacles that we were born with physical obstacles, with our technological obstacles. So we can go out of the boundaries of our planet, boundaries of our galaxy, boundaries of our lifetimes. So he calls them cosmists. So that's a psychological shift. The next one is transhumans. Once you start putting chips into your body, once you start augmenting abilities of your body, whether biologically, chemically, or technologically, you become a transhuman, right? So you're not organic anymore. You're a transhuman. So yes, first we're adding beliefs and different ideas, then we're adding genetic and biological enhancements and modifications, then we're coming closer, we become post-humans. That's where the post-human and transhuman, whenever I meet people and I try to explain to them the difference between post-humans and transhumans, it's tricky, because basically post-humans is when you augment and enhance yourself so much that you cannot be even considered human anymore. That's kind of how people in the popular culture right now explain that. And that's how Ramez Naam explained that in his book Nexus too. And then once you basically have so much of your body, of your brain being artificial, technological, you are considered a cyborg, right? And that is where the interesting questions start appearing about coming back to the question of intelligence and consciousness. Because where does the consciousness on this scale appear? Where does it disappear? Or does it ever exist? Or does it exist all the way throughout that scale? We have androids. Now, androids is the only, that's why I'm talking about it the last, that's where it kind of merges. So it merges here, right? And the tricky thing, so androids are, what is Android? Android, basically it's the idea that it starts here, so it's an artificial intelligence embedded in the physical body, but it uses artificial organic elements. And that is exactly that third C part that I was reading, where the notion is that we cannot simulate correctly consciousness and intelligence unless it is biologically based, so we have to create artificial brain essentially to have an artificial consciousness. Otherwise it's not. It can be an intelligence, can be an automaton, a simulation, but it is not going to be self-aware in the sense that we are self-aware. So if the strong AI indeed is not possible, then this, and this is not conscious. If the weak AI is not possible, then this is not conscious. Now, if consciousness is a mystery, right, and it's actually somehow unrelated to physical body, but we're channeling it in a sense and all the spiritual things, then this is the danger zone where consciousness disappears. And basically, I'm not making any statement or claim here. I just wanted to show this spectrum, and I wanted to show that there is a lot of talk happening right now, and actually it's not happening, but it should be happening, as far as to how intelligence relates to consciousness and what is going to happen with this transformation, because this involution and evolution is going to take place, and it's kind of going to be freaky for people who have difference of opinions. Thank you. Any questions? Huh? Oh, yeah. It's really awesome. It summarizes a lot of really good people. So it's called The Mystery of Consciousness, John Searle.
So, a couple questions. Okay, we come up to the mic. You two, okay, just you two.
Okay. I think this is a really useful framework. What do you call this framework?
I just called AI spectrum. AI human spectrum, yeah.
So, mic's not working. Mic's not working? How about that? Okay, so thanks. So I would have a question actually for everyone here, which is derived from Searle's book. He poses a thought experiment called the Chinese Room, in which he challenges the reader to ask, what if a room could translate Chinese into English or vice versa? When would you know if the room is intelligent? And by extension, when would you know if the room was conscious? If you think about this the way Searle does, he leaves with he leaves you with a challenge to appreciate that you may not really be able to answer that question, and it may not be important. Instead, you have to accept that consciousness, one argument is that consciousness is simply possible, whether you instantiate it in an organic or an inorganic being. So it really may not matter. Whether you like it or not, you're getting consciousness eventually in a device. And maybe that's a more interesting question. So.
Well, it's interesting because Searle was truly the originator of this argument of the Chinese room, but he uses that precisely to dissuade that notion that you can create consciousness in a box. Basically, he uses the Chinese room argument to say that a strong AI is impossible. And it is just like you open any page here, he will mention that. Where is it? The matter simulating certain human cognitive capacities, discussion of the Chinese room argument, simulation should not be confused with duplication. That's basically the punchline, is that you can have somebody act like a human intelligence. In that particular argument, the idea is that there's a room, and inside the room there is a person who has a lot of different, like, say, dictionary in Chinese, and you try to talk to that person on the pieces of paper, and you give him, ask him questions in Chinese, and he's sitting there in the room, and he just goes in a dictionary one by one, translating things into your language, and then answering that, and passing back the answers. And it, for you, sitting outside the room, not knowing what's happening inside, it will seem like you're talking to somebody who actually speaks Chinese. But it's not true. So the idea is that simulation of intelligence does not necessarily mean that it is conscious.
So does that mean that there isn't a test for consciousness, and even after we have things all across the spectrum, we won't really know which ones are conscious and not? We won't really know which of those?
Yep. That's the point. That's actually a really cool point, because I forgot to mention that in the very beginning. I want to say that when we're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about a very particular thing, about calculating stuff, right? So it's something that we can do. But intelligence has many different aspects. For example, when humor, it's in a sense, it's an intelligence too, right? Or when artist paints a painting, or when a poet writes a poetry, or a musician writes a music, that's an intelligence in a sense too. Or your body has an intelligence. Like when I was taping, I didn't know what to do, and I was balancing there on my leg, if anybody saw. And that's actually an intelligence of your body. As well. Honda took them like 20 years of R&D research to just figure out how to make a robot walk and balance. So these things are also our intelligences. So when we're talking about artificial intelligence, I think that's really a misnomer, because we're applying that term to just one kind of intelligence, and we keep on trying to figure out how we're going to do it. But how are we going to do all of those other intelligences? So it's a very good question. Yeah, I think it's another type of intelligence, like humor too.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, yes, here he comes. Our next speaker is architect Fred Stitt.